thank you for being here. I feel honored to be in Catalonia, to meet amazing educators. I'm going to start today with a personal story. My father worked in a chemical plant, fábrica química, Panama suit. A long time, 47 years, he works in this fábrica química. His dream was when he retired, at the end of his career, he would have a pension and he would be able to travel with my mother. They could not afford that before, but when he was done, maybe they could see the world. So he retired from the fábrica química at age 47. At 47 years, he was age 68, but he died at age 69. So he had one year. But it's not a sad story because it was the best year of his life. He and my mother got to travel to places in the world for the first time, and it was an amazing year for them, a really wonderful year. So they called me up. They said, Ron, we just went to Europe. You have to come visit. You need to hear our stories. You need to see our pictures. So I got in my truck. I drove to their home, and their whole house was covered with pictures. So if you are very young in the audience, I need to tell you there was a time when pictures were not on a screen. They were in your hands. You had to bring them to a store, get them developed, get them back. So these were pictures, and every table, their dining room table, their kitchen table, their coffee table, was just pictures. Their chairs, just pictures. And they were so excited to tell us about their trip, to tell me about their trip to Europe. And as I looked at the pictures, I noticed that almost every picture was framed by a train window. It was taken from the train. And they were all a little bit blurry. So there were castles, there were cities, there were cathedrals, all a little bit blurry. And then my parents would pick them up and say, this was Spain. No, maybe it was France. No, it was Switzerland. No, maybe it was Spain. And they would argue, and they really couldn't remember what picture was from where. So if you had given them an assessment about España or Catalonia or France or anywhere, they would not have remembered too much. They had a wonderful time, but they didn't remember any details. And I asked them, how many countries did you visit? And they said, well, we had a package tour, 14 countries, 12 days. And I thought, no wonder they remember nothing. And I thought, I wish they had taken a tour that was 4 countries or 5 countries if they wanted to see it, but 14? And I thought, what if they had got to spend 3 days or 4 days in Barcelona and seen the Sagrada Familia and walked the streets of the Gothic Quarter and had great Catalonian tapas and experienced this beautiful city? They would have come home and said, oh, Ron, Barcelona is the most beautiful city in the world. We can't wait to go back to Catalonia. But they couldn't say that. They were on the train all the time. And I had this revelation. So back then I was a classroom teacher. I was in the classroom almost 30 years. And I thought, that was my education growing up. I was on a train from age 4 to age 18. I was just moving through. My teachers were giving content, and we just didn't stop. And by the train window, quadratic formula, dates of the war, physics formulas, I learned them, I took my exam, then I forgot them. I don't remember them now. I am just like my parents. It was all a blur. And I thought, I cannot do that for my students. This year, I am going to make sure I stop the train sometimes. Sometimes I'm going to stop the train and get off in Barcelona and let them learn something deeply, let them learn something they will remember their whole life, let them create something great. That's my main message today, is that there's so many competencies we need to cover, so much content we need to cover. It's easy to get on that train with our students and just not stop. We can't stop all the time. A trip to Europe can't be just to Catalonia. We have to see other countries. But if we never stop during the year, if we never stop in Barcelona and really do something great, our students won't remember as a really important experience. So I never want to tell school leaders or teachers where they should stop the train, or for how long, or how many times a year. This is you. You are all professionals. This is your choice. But my hope is that you'll think, we are going to stop this year. We're going to stop here for a week. We're going to stop here for 4 days. We're going to stop here for 2 weeks. And our students will never forget what we did when we were stopped off that train. That's my big message today. I'm going to share many examples of work today. They are from different countries, but mostly America. And the context, the setting of the cities, the towns will not be Catalonia. It will be very different. You might think, that is so different than what we do, that could never happen here. That's okay. If 5 of my ideas are crazy, my stories don't work, but one of them is useful, that's okay. I hope that there'll be a few examples, a few ideas, a few stories this morning that you think, that one I could use. A lot of that was crazy, but one of those was okay. That's a really helpful one for me today. So the title of my comments today, my remarks, is Leaders of Their Own Learning, which is the idea that what if students felt like, this is my journey? I am here with you in your school to build my skills, to build my character, to build my life. I'm not coming here to have stuff done to me. In America, many students go to school as if they're going to a doctor's visit. They're told what to do, they're tested, are you okay? They just do what they're told, and then they're free to go do what they really want to do. If you want to have a healthy life, going to the doctors is not an answer, it's just a check. You have to decide, I want a healthy life. I'm going to exercise, I'm going to eat well, I'm going to sleep well, I'm going to have healthy friendships. You have to choose that life. And what if school were that way? What if students were like, I am here to build my healthy life. I'm in charge here. And so Leaders of Their Own Learning is putting students in the driver's seat. They are driving their education, rather than seeing education as something done to them. That's where this title comes from. Here's my feeling about education. Once our students are grown up and they're done with school, for the rest of their life, there will only be 2 things that matter. What kind of person are they? And what's the quality of their work? What kind of work ethic do they have? And what are their standards for good work? I think these should be the organizing principles for schools. Schools should be organized to cultivate students who are good human beings, who have character, good character, who have a strong work ethic, and have very high standards for the work they do. Everything else is extra. This is what school should be about. When you think, is this really all we care about? It is what we care about. Because if you think of your own children or your grandchildren or your nieces or your nephews, you hope they're going to grow up to be good human beings, and you'll hope they'll be good at what they do and proud of what they do. That's our hope for all of us. And everyone hopes that for their children from every culture. And we depend on the good work of people. When you go in for surgery, you hope your surgeon is really good at what she does. When you get on a plane, you hope your pilot is really good at what she does. When you call a plumber to fix your pipes in your home, you hope your plumber is really good at what she does. Quality work matters no matter what we do. And so can we build a spirit, an ethic in students of, I'm going to do my work really well. I have pride in doing my work well. I'm in charge of this. So many people think, oh, students don't care that much. Students do what we tell them maybe, but they don't care that deeply about their learning. They don't try so hard. Think about students in these settings. Think about a girl who's learning dance, or is in a play, or is on the football pitch. They care very deeply about being good at what they do. And they are in charge of their learning. They're not doing this because someone is forcing them to come to school. They're doing it because they want to be good at music, at drama, at dance, at football. And if you ask any kid in Catalonia, in any country in the world who plays football, or who does dance, or who acts in a play, or who plays an instrument, if you ask that student, can you tell me, what are you good at? What are your strengths in football, in violin, in dance? Where are your weaknesses? What are the things you're not so good at yet? And what are the things you're working on right now to get better? Any kid in any country, in any field, could tell you exactly what they're good at, what they're not so good at yet, and what they're working on in this field. They are in charge of their learning. They know exactly what they're trying to get better at. When I go into schools in America that are conventional schools, where students take exams all the time, and I say, Susanna, how are you in mathematics? The answer I get is, I get a B. I'm a 82. My teacher says I'm okay. They never say I'm strong in algebra, but I'm a little weak in this. I still have trouble with negative numbers sometimes. My geometry is strong. But they cannot talk about their academics the way they talk about their dance or their football or their music, because they don't own it. They're just doing what's told in school. They're not thinking, I am working to get great at being a mathematician. I am working to be great as a writer, as a reader, as a thinker, as a scientist. If they were, everything would be different. They would tell you, oh, I'm really good at this part, but I'm not so good at this part. So 2 days ago, I had the chance at Angeleta Ferreira to listen to two students, Beatrice and Anais, who were high school students there, do a presentation of learning. And they could say exactly what they were strong in and exactly what they were struggling in, just like these students could do for you. That's what I'm hoping for students to have that ownership. This is my journey, and I can tell you where I'm getting ahead, and I can tell you where I'm not. Let me tell you a little bit about my work now. So for me, this is my 48th year in public education. So many years for me. For the last 30 years, I've been running an organization in the US. It's a nonprofit. It's called EL Education, and it was born from two places. One of the parents of my organization is Harvard University, and that is still where I go to work, do research. I will be there next week. The other organization is Outward Bound, which is a wilderness organization. Outward Bound takes people into the wilderness, not to teach wilderness skills, but to teach character and teamwork, courage, compassion, responsibility. When you're in Outward Bound, your job is not to get yourself to the top of the mountain, it's to get your whole crew to the top of the mountain. If you make it and everyone's left behind, what's the use? So when you're in Outward Bound, you're not always happy. You're miserable sometimes because you're hot and sweaty and tired and you have to help everyone else. But when you all get to the top of the mountain, like these students here, you all feel like heroes and you did this together. That was our vision when we started our nonprofit. Could schools be that way? Could schools be a team sport where every kid looked out for each other rather than an individual sport? So we believe that character should be at the center of school, just like academics, just like it is in Outward Bound. We have a different definition of student achievement than most people in America, but we're trying to spread our definition all around America and the world wherever we can. We call this a three-dimensional vision of student achievement. Mastery of the competencies and content is one dimension. Character, being a good human being, is a second dimension. And work, high quality work, a good work ethic where you really care about doing beautiful quality work, is the third dimension. We care a lot about instruction. I've been fortunate to work with a Sisire team and many educators here for the last 3 days. We looked a lot at what makes instruction great. It needs to be challenging for students, engaging, and empowering for students, and we looked at frameworks for that. Sisire has great frameworks, we have frameworks, we discussed those together. We have a framework for character, and in the center of our character framework, just as Sisire's is, the center of our framework is students should be in school to get smart, to make the world better. Not just to get wealthy, not just for themselves. The point of school is to prepare citizens who will make a better world. Help their families, help their friends, help their community, help their city, help their country, help their world. That's a noble mission for school. And every kid, even those kids that make bad choices, even those kids that would tell you I'm a bad kid, every kid wants to do some good in the world. They all do. We all do. So that's what we try to tap into with our character framework. And we have a framework for high quality work, that it has complexity, craftsmanship, and authenticity. So that's the framing for me today. Why does high quality work matter? And I'm going to use the word a lot today, beautiful work. I want to explain that when I say beautiful work, I don't just mean pretty, aesthetically nice work. We had a hard time, Elizabeth, Anna, I, others at Sisire, finding what's the right Catalan word for when I say beautiful work. It wasn't really bonique. It was because it meant beautiful to look at, but it also means meaningful work, purposeful work, brilliant work, important work. In America, when someone has a great idea, they say, beautiful idea. When someone does a great mathematical equation, you say, beautiful equation. It's that kind of beautiful. That work matters because I think every kid has beautiful work in her. I believe every student has beautiful work in them. And our job is to help them get there. Because once they do beautiful work, they're never the same. They're a different person when they do something that's far greater than they thought they could do. I go around the world meeting with students, asking them to share their beautiful work with me. These are two students who are sharing beautiful work. When you look at their faces, you think they are so proud of who they are now to have done work that their family could not believe, that they could not believe, and they will never go back. This young woman, Larissa, she's in New York City, the poorest section of America. It's called the Bronx. Larissa showed me last year this book she created. It's a graphic novel about the life of poet Langston Hughes from the Harlem Renaissance. I could not believe what an incredible piece of work that is. I went back to her school 1 month ago, met with the principal and said, I want to meet with Larissa and talk to her about her book. So she came to the principal's office and she said, I don't want to talk about that book because my work this year is so much better. I said, do you have any? And she said, would you be willing to look at my portfolio? I said, I'd love to. And she ran out of the principal's office and broke the school rules. She ran through the school, ran to her locker, got her portfolio, came back, out of breath, and she laid out all the work she's been working on this year. And she was glowing, and I took pictures of every one of her pieces. And I thought, she's just amazing. When we left, it happened to be her birthday that day, so when we left, we sent her a gift certificate to an art store so she could get supplies, because she comes from a low-income family. Every student has this beautiful work in them if we can unleash it. So, I want to tell you a few stories of beautiful work. I'm going to start in a place in America that none of you have been to. In fact, no one's been to pretty much. The name of this town is Moscow, like Moscow, Russia, but it's Moscow, Idaho. It's a rural town, farm town. This is the view from the front door of the school, so very different than Barcelona. This is what you see when you're at the front door of the school. And when you go to the downtown, it does not look like the downtown here. The downtown of Moscow, Idaho, is big storage buildings for grain. They grow wheat, they grow other grain, they store it in this city. So this is a farm community. I went to Moscow, Idaho, because the students from this school did some beautiful work that was really transformational for me. The project these students did was each student was paired with an animal from an animal shelter, a shelter for abandoned animals. So one little girl, these were fourth graders, so 10-year-olds, one little girl was paired with Reagan, the cat. Her parents were not going to allow her to take Reagan home, but her job was to save Reagan's life. How was she going to do that? She took a picture of Reagan, and then she took notes and learned the story of Reagan's life. How did she get to the shelter? What do we know about Reagan? Then she wrote a poem about the life of Reagan, and with her friends and her teacher, they critiqued her poem, and she redrafted it, and they critiqued her poem, and she redrafted it, until it was a poem that she thought might change somebody's heart. And then she started working on a portrait of Reagan that would make your heart feel something. Because a photograph can be pretty dull, but a portrait can be strong if it has those great eyes. So she drew a portrait of Reagan that she hoped would move someone's heart. And every student had a cat or a dog that they were trying to care for. And so the students took their pictures and their poems, and with the school's help, they made them into posters. And they put these posters all around Moscow, Idaho, in places where people had to sit. So doctor's office, dentist's office, government buildings where you have to sit and wait. When they have a bulletin board, posters of Angelina or Freddie Mercury or Reagan were up with the poems, with the hope that people would read them and it would change their heart. So I want to read you one of those poems. I apologize, it's only in English. It's a poem about this animal, Bella. One new start. I arrive. The one who loves me drops me off. Too much work, I guess. Betrayed, afraid, left here. The gravel stings my paws, loud neighbors. Better get used to it. My longing eyes stare into you, traumatized, beyond hope. My hair goes in one direction, but life does not. Better get used to it. I try to slow life down and fetch tennis balls and eat goodies and savor belly rubs. They help some. But one day, 2 people come and I ride away to one new home forever. I hope. One new start. Bella by Jack. So, Jack was the 10-year-old boy who wrote that poem and did this portrait. This got put up. You can guess what happened. I don't know how long people would stare at pictures of Bella, read that poem, and not think, I want that dog. And so the school started to get phone calls from the shelter every day. Freddie Mercury got adopted. Angelina got adopted. Bella got adopted. And they would interrupt school, and over the loudspeaker system of the school, they would announce which animal got adopted. The kids would cheer. The kids would cry. And I thought, what a simple project, but what a beautiful project. A project that saved the lives of these animals and made these students realize they could change the world if they did great work. Because if these drawings were very lousy, if their poems were lousy, it would not have moved people's hearts. So I thought, I have to fly to Moscow, Idaho, and meet these students. And that's a long flight for me. It's as far as flying from where I live in Massachusetts to Barcelona. And I couldn't even fly to Moscow, Idaho, of course. I had to fly to Washington State and drive 3 hours to get to Moscow, Idaho. But I met these students, and they were leaders of their own learning. They were on a mission to change the world. Now they were 11, and they were like, we already learned when we were 10 that we can change the world with good work. If we do beautiful work, we can make things happen. I thought, what a beautiful message to move forward with. All right, let me take you across the pond to England. Here is a high school project that struck me in that same way. During the pandemic, these high school students had a nursing home right near their school. So they went to the nursing home and they went to the directors of the nursing home and they said, the pandemic is so hard for you in a nursing home where people are dying every day. We want to know how we can help. And the nursing home directors said, we'll talk about it. And they came back to the students and they said, our staff, our aides, our nurses, our workers, they are so sad, they are so dispirited, they are so discouraged. Can you think of something that would make them feel better, that would honor them? So the students discussed it, they came back, they took photographs of all the staff, and they did portraits of them. And after they did the portraits, they framed them to hang in the front hallway of the nursing home. And so in many buildings you walk in and there's a portrait of some older man who gave a lot of money once upon a time and that make the building happen. But you never see pictures of all the staff of a building that are beautifully painted or drawn or etched. So now when the staff come into the nursing home, they see a gallery of portraits of their faces. And the faces were beautifully done in all different media, in paint, oils, tempera, colored pencil, pastel. And each one looks different, and each one honored someone who worked in that building. I loved this project. But even more, the students then said, we need to see how to help the patients. So they went and met with the patients. They had to meet far away with masks on. You remember that time. They said, how can we help you? Is there anything we can do? And the patients said, we have a hallway with a blank wall that we walk by every day, many times. It's just blank. Could you paint something on that wall that would make us feel better? And so they interviewed the patients about what they would like. And the patients said, we'd love a scene of the city outside that we don't get to see anymore. So the students, you see them there in the background, In England, you know, students wear uniforms every day. It's a little tighter than here, Catalonia. These students painted this mural of this downtown of their city that these patients could not see anymore, so that every day at least they'd feel a little bit like they were outdoors. Another example of beautiful work. And one last example. These students who are 8 and 9 years old live in Washington, D.C., capital city of America. You may know that the capital city of America has beautiful Capitol buildings and then lots of poverty. The people that live in D.C. either have very fancy homes or they live in very poor homes. And the public schools of D.C. are mostly poor children. Wealthy families never send their children to the public schools in D.C., very rarely. This is a public school in D.C. that I worked with, and it was surrounded by homeless people, where their building was at that time. So when I worked with the school, I had to walk around homeless people to get to the front door. These 3rd and 4th graders, so 9 and 10-year-olds, decided we have to do something for the homeless. So they did some of the things you would think of. They collected blankets, they collected clothing, they collected food. But they did something else, which is with adult help, they went out and they met the homeless people around their building. They interviewed them, they asked them about their lives. They found out how they became homeless. They told them about their own lives. And they, when I worked with them, these students said, Mr. Berger, and in the US, people say Mr. or Mrs. They said, Mr. Berger, we learned something about homeless people that's really important. I said, what is that? They said, homeless people lost more than their home. They lost a lot of their humanity because people don't look at them, people don't talk to them, people are afraid of them, people don't like them, and it's not their fault. Some of them are mentally ill, some of them lost all their money, but they're not bad people, they just have troubles. We need to educate kids, little kids, that homeless people are people too. So they wrote a book, an ABC book for little kids. Now they were 9 and 10-year-olds. If you teach secondary, you think they're already little. But if you teach kindergartners, you realize, no, they don't think they're little. Little kids are really little. So they created an ABC book for kindergartners about homelessness and the fact that homeless people have feelings and we need to care about them. Every page in the book is a letter of the alphabet. L is for lonely. I'm lonely because people don't notice me. And then they did an illustration of loneliness in watercolor. H is for heart. Homeless people have heart. They help other homeless people. So the young man who did this page, H is for heart, his name was Clarence. And I said, Clarence, what do you think changed from your project? I know that your book was copied and you made 100 copies of your book and you sent it to 100 schools. So you've helped many kindergartners understand the homeless are people too. What else do you think changed from your project? And he said, Mr. Berger, everything changed. And being an adult with a limited vision, I kept thinking, well, everything didn't change because you have homeless people all around your school still. We haven't solved the homelessness problem in DC. But he said, Mr. Berger, before we did this project, we were afraid of all the people around our school. We didn't know who they were. They didn't know who we were. Every day that we came to school, we were scared. We know every one of them now. We're not scared of, they're our friends. They say good morning to us every morning by name. We say good morning to them by name. After school, we tell them how our day was. We have these friends. They have these friends. He said, everything has changed. It's all different. And I thought, in their little world, everything had changed. And I thought, wow, the power of beautiful work just blew me away. So Clarence said, Mr. Berger, you're a little bit famous. Can we give you a copy of our book? And I said, I'd be honored, Clarence. So I took a copy of the book, which I still have, along with my collection of 1,000 other pieces of beautiful work that I've spent 45 years collecting. And then I came back to the school a little bit later, and he said, Mr. Berger, a much more famous person visited our school. And I gave them a copy. So I am not thinking about you as much anymore. And I said, that's all right, Clarence. This was the person who visited their school that they gave a copy to. And they actually gave a copy to the president and the first lady. So President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama each got a copy of the A to Z Book of Homelessness. And Clarence said, Mr. Berger, the president has a copy, you have a copy, now you're kind of connected to the president. I said, thank you, Clarence, all because of you. So I was in the school a couple of years ago. This young man came up to me in the hallway. He said, excuse me, sir. I said, hello? He said, Mr. Berger. I said, do I know you? He said, it's Clarence. Clarence. And I said, H is for heart? Homeless people have heart? Clarence? And he said, oh, you remember my page. I can't believe it. You remember my page? I said, oh, I love your book. You gave me your book. I said, what are you doing here now? He said, I teach here now. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is the way life should be when the Clarences become your teachers. So I'm going to pause for a moment now. Take 2 minutes and just talk to somebody next to you. What's coming up for you? What are you thinking about? So we'll be taking short breaks like that to discuss throughout the time I'm speaking for a couple of reasons. One is you need a break from my English occasionally, so you're not straining to have to understand me all the time. But the main reason is I want to keep thinking, like, this isn't to hear me. This is what connects for you. What's connecting in your work, your life that could be useful to you. Whatever stories I'm sharing, it's not for you to remember that story, but to think, oh, I have an idea of how that connects to my life, my teaching, my family, my work. So I want us to keep connecting back. Let me tell you about where I live. So I live in a town in Massachusetts, but not near Boston. So I live hours away from Boston up in the hills in a very small rural community. My town is so small that it has almost nothing. In the center of town, there's a sign about how to get to anywhere where there might be something. So my town has no stores, no traffic lights. Most of the roads are not paved. Most of the roads are dirt. I live on a dirt road. I built my own house. This is really like small town. In my town, there's very few buildings. There's a church in the middle of town, just one church. There's a post office that's also Mary Dillman's home, so you have to go into her home to get your mail. There's a town hall for meetings. And the only establishment in town is called the Shutesbury Athletic Club. But there are no weights, no treadmills, no elliptical trainers in this building. This is a bar. That's the way it looks in the front. That's the way it looks in the back. It's a bar in the middle of the woods where people come to drink, and it's the only place in town to gather. If you're sick in my town, you should hope it's on a Thursday between those hours, because we have no hospital in town, of course, no clinic in town, no services in town. It's very small up in the mountains town. This building is an important building in our town, and it's the firefighters. It's the volunteer firefighters shed where our one firefighting truck is kept. No one in my town is paid to fight fires or deal with emergencies. Everyone's a volunteer. So, why do I care so much about students being good people who do really good work? I taught in this town for 28 years, and I was the only upper grade teacher in the elementary school, which is the only school in town, which means everyone in my town is my former student. which means every volunteer firefighter is my former student. My life is in the hands of my former students. My nurse is my former student, my plumber is my former student. I need my former students to be good at what they do. Let me give you one powerful example. Let me show you here. These are my former students putting out a fire in town. Could you be more proud of your former students than if they were doing this? These are my former students saving the life of a dog that fell through the ice in town. Could you be more proud of students doing that? My wife was at home one day, I was not. My grandchildren had talked me into building them a playhouse. They designed it for me, and so when I built it, it was big. It was a castle. This is the castle I built for them in their backyard. I was building this castle, and my daughter brought me the phone, was the police. They said, your wife had an accident. We're rushing her to the hospital. You need to get to the hospital in the city, not where I live, in the big city. And I left, and I got there, and my wife was saved. She did not die. She called emergency services in America. Everyone who showed up at my home to save her life was my former student. So if you think about if someone you loved was in danger and you called emergency services, who would you want those people to be who showed up? I can tell you what I wanted. I want them to be courageous and compassionate and really good at saving lives. And they were. And they helped my wife, and I could depend on my former students. Now, if you call emergency services in Barcelona or whatever town you live in, it may not be your former students who show up, but everyone who shows up is somebody's former student. This is our work. Our work is creating all the first responders of the world, all the doctors of the world, all the people that we're going to depend on for our whole lives. These are our students. I think being a teacher and school leader is the most important job in the world, by far. Some people say, well, doctors are important, and nurses are important, and politicians are important, and firefighters are important. I said, yeah, they are. And we're the ones who taught them how to be good people and smart people. This is the most important job I know, your job, our job. So I'm reminded of it every day because where I live in town, I can't walk down the bottom of my driveway without seeing my former student. So in my small town, there's not a lot of money to do anything. So when we needed a playhouse built for the kindergartners, my students at the time, who were 10, 11, and 12-year-olds, designed and built a playhouse for the kindergartners. Because I needed to work as a carpenter because I didn't make much money as a teacher in my town. I built houses, and so I was able to teach my students building skills. They built this playhouse, which is still there. Still looks okay, decades later. And this young man, I ran into him recently, and he said, hey, Mr. Berger, I just finished a house. Do you want to come see the house I built? And so I followed him in his truck, in my truck. He showed me this house. He had just built it. He said, no one has moved in yet. I can take you inside. I went inside with him. He showed me the interiors he had done. And I realized he's come a long way since he built that playhouse. And I thought, beautiful work can be all kinds of beautiful work. Having a great carpenter as my former student made me so proud. In my town, we didn't know if the water was safe for animals, whether there was pollution or not. We didn't have any budget in town to test for that. So I found people at the university who could teach my students how to do water quality testing. They loaned us the equipment, and my students went throughout the town to the streams and lakes and wetlands, and they tested the water every spot in our town, and they mapped it all out on large maps, and they created a report for the town of where the water was safe in town, where it was healthy for animals, where it was not. And this report is still hanging up in our town hall because it's the only report that's ever been done for my town. People still refer to it in the town offices. The young man on the right, Jeremiah, with those goggles on, you can't see his face here. I just want to give you an update since you know in a small town I know where all my former students are. Jeremiah's on the left there. He is an emergency room nurse in the local city, in the hospital where my wife went. No one in town has a water system. Everyone has a well. I have a well. The school has a well. We didn't know if our well water was safe to drink. So the university helped our students learn to run an inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometer. So my students learn how to run a machine that costs $500,000, a mass spectrometer. And people said to me, "Are you crazy? You let 10 and 11-year-olds run a $500,000 mass spectrometer?" And I said, let me ask you a question. If there was a new video game, and I got you and a 10-year-old and said, we're going to teach you this video game, who do you think would learn it faster? And the person said, don't do it. Don't even try. I totally get it. There's no way anyone could beat a 10-year-old at learning a video game. I said, how is a mass spectrometer different? Those kids learned right away how to run this machine. And they tested everyone's well water in town, including my water. And the students who tested my water had to take me in the hallway and give me the bad news that my water wasn't great. You know how you take a kid in the hallway to tell them bad news? This was the kids taking me in the hallway. They said, Mr. Berger, we need to talk to you in the hallway. They said, your water has some problems. And I have a filtration system now in my basement because of my students discovering my water was not great. Here is the well report they created for the town. It's still hanging up in our town hall. These students were doing adult level science. And another great thing is that these students did not come from families usually where their parents went to college or university. They came from the kind of families who you'd think they'll never go to college, they'll never go to university, and where the students themselves might be thinking, I'm not that kind of kid. But after working for 3 weeks in a university, running machines, working with college students and university and grad students, these students were convinced they could go to college. They thought college was easier than elementary school. They told me college students don't even go to class every day. Some days they just sleep late. This is really not a hard life. We could do this. So those students in that class have gone on to college and university, unlike their parents. This girl in this picture, Elena, I want to show you Elena today. This is Elena this fall. She is a teacher in the Bronx, New York City. I couldn't be more proud. All right, I want to take you to Boston, Massachusetts. Boston, Massachusetts is about little over 2 hours from me. Many of you know the city. Again, it's a city that's beautiful, but public schools are mostly low-income kids, and wealthy people mostly send their kids to private schools. This is a public school for low-income students where the kids do really beautiful work. They did a project where they studied snakes of the world, and they created an interactive ebook, a field guide to snakes of the world that lives online that anyone in the world can download for free onto their iPad. Each student picked one snake and became an expert in that snake. So Nashari Davis chose this diamondback rattlesnake. She wrote a page in beautiful writing about a day in the life of a diamondback rattlesnake and did this amazing illustration. And if you click on her page, you hear Nashari narrating her page in a speaker's voice, as if she was hired to read a book for a read aloud. And you'll also hear music that she put as a track, a second track, audio track. And the music is music that she composed and played with her classmates. And then you'll hear sound effects in a third audio track. So these students did the research, They did the writing, they did the illustrations, they learned the program to create the pages, and then they laid in 3 audio tracks as well. And they were only 8 years old. And it's not just Nashari's that's amazing. Xavier's is amazing too. And every student's page is amazing. So when I saw this project happening, I thought, I need to get my video team into this school so people can see, how is this possible? Because when you look at these illustrations, you think, these students are just really good at this. But this is a classroom that watched Austin's Butterfly again and again. The teacher played Austin's Butterfly regularly with them, and they thought, we can get better at this. So I'm going to take you into this classroom for 5 minutes on video, and you can see, oh, they were really little and they weren't very good at this at first. And you'll see how they got better.
Baby African rock python soon passes a river, and a giant, starving, scaly crocodile rises out of the green water on its big, short legs and bounds toward her. Crocodiles are her predators.
And around. Well, this is a pretty cool.
When students are feeling excited and empowered by what they are learning, it creates the right conditions for producing really high-quality work. And getting really high-quality work from every student means they have to go through a process of critique and revision. We began thinking about our scientifically accurate drawings of our snakes by looking at models done by kids from earlier years.
What are some stars we could give about Goodness's snake shape? Some compliments, some kind critique. Maxwell.
I like how he wrote the head and the tail where it's supposed to be.
Students worked on one aspect of illustration at a time, starting with their snake shape.
I want you to now think about stairs. What are some stairs, some things that he could work towards in his next draft? Turn and talk.
Yeah, and I think you should make the head, because it kind of looks like it's sagging down, so it can make it a little bit round.
I wanted students to not only understand how to look carefully like scientists at the work, but also be able to enhance their ability to give critique and feedback by using our rubrics.
Okay, if the target's met, that means that in every single place that the lines are smooth. Do you see some smooth lines? Where do you see some smooth lines? Okay. Do you see smooth lines everywhere? Can you point a few lines where they're not so smooth?
There.
Okay, so did she hit the target for that? Okay, so is she getting started?
I've been traveling around the country for the past 10 years with a story called Austin's Butterfly about the power of critique and feedback. And that story has become a phenomenon in a way. It has taken off internationally. Tens of thousands of students and teachers have found it a provocation to create beautiful work. It's not bad, and it is a butterfly, but does it look exactly like this? No, and people often ask me, what would it look like if that Austin's Butterfly process was always there in a classroom? What could a classroom look like? And I'm not sure I've ever seen a classroom that's a better example of that than this classroom.
Would you agree that the size, how wide the
We have
snake
3
is
things that we
the same
always
until it
ask
gets
kids
the
to do
tail?
when we're doing a critique. Be kind, be specific, and be helpful. And after the kids practiced, we began the process of going back and critiquing each other's work. And what I find is that in the beginning, kids are really great about being kind.
I like that you made like the tail, because I can see in the picture that it goes up.
So at the beginning, we don't see a lot of very helpful or specific feedback. Over time, as kids do this, and we're talking about over several weeks, as they practice, critique, and their drawings improve, you can see that the kids begin to recognize the value of that specific and helpful feedback.
Like right here is like more wider, so one thing I do to get it in proportion, I go like that, and then I go like that, and then I erase the lines, and then I just make it however how my fingers work.
And the negative space here should be a little bit smaller. And the negative space here could be bigger.
I also needed to be able to sit with kids individually to help them improve their ability to give critique. So I needed a process in my classroom to give kids more independence in their work.
But some of you yesterday finished a draft and were really hoping to get some critique from peers. For example, Marguerite finished one of her snake shapes. So Marguerite would find her name. This is Marguerite Asian Rock Python. And what Marguerite would do is she would move her name to being ready for a peer critique. Anybody else who's ready for a peer critique would move their name to ready for a peer critique.
I've used the project board with kids for a long time, and that helps them become the co-managers of the critique process. They can see where anyone is in the classroom at any time, and I can see where anyone is in the classroom at any time, and then they can choose a partner to go and do critique with. It's great because it means kids aren't always going to their friends. It's great because they can take more ownership over the critique process themselves. Over time, we focused on other physical features like scales, patterns, and color. And along the way, we worked with different experts who taught the kids specific techniques.
So sometimes we're going to see just plain old circles. Sometimes you see ovals. Ooh. Oh my goodness, like perfectly perpendicular diamonds, like that?
And for each new aspect of their illustration, we created a rubric and had opportunities for critique and feedback.
I like how your scales are going to the direction of where the body is. Like something that you can work on, like a stair, is trying to make all the scales the same size. Not like smaller.
I had to make them big because you know how it's facing towards Dorado?
Getting kids to do their best work is what learning expeditions are all about. It's not just about doing it when we're doing our high-quality artwork. We take the same process, then we can apply it to the way we craft our written stories. Or in our school, we can do the same thing when we think about all the music that's essential in our school. Learning how to do your best work and learning that that happens through a process of critique and revision is very empowering for students. It sets them up for success in any academic or personal venture in the future.
Instead of a triangle. But just make it a little bit bigger, not just that bump. Yeah.
Okay, take a few minutes. What's on your mind? What are you thinking? What did you notice in that classroom? What ideas are coming up for you or connections to your work? I want to move on to high school because I've been showing little kids for a bit. Many of you are secondary teachers. But before I do, I have to show you one more 2-minute video of those students. Because these students, like all the students I'm privileged to work with in the United States, in the schools I work with, they're all dedicated toward character and compassion and social justice. And these students grew to love snakes when they were working with snakes. At first they were scared of them, then they grew to respect them and love them. And they learned something terrible, which is that people hate snakes. They don't treat snakes well. They kill snakes. In every religion, snakes are the bad guys. In every fable, snakes are the bad guys. And they said, this is not snakes' fault. Snakes are God's creatures. Snakes are good. They help the ecosystem. We have to educate people about the fact that snakes are good. So they thought about creating a public service announcement for television, but then they learned that just creating one didn't mean television would show it. And they thought about writing to the newspaper, the Boston Globe, and then they learned that writing an editorial didn't mean that the paper would publish it. So they thought, we'll just go around all those grown-ups and create a music video, and it will go viral, and everyone will know. And we explained that just creating a music video doesn't mean it goes viral. And they said, if it's good, it will. And so they spent 2 months creating a music video. They didn't do it in one afternoon. They found a musician who was willing to come in, who was a songwriter, and help them write the song. They found a dancer who was willing to come in and choreograph their movements. They found a studio that was willing to show them how to use sound equipment and let them use their studio for recording. They had their music teacher work with them on playing instruments. After 2 months, when their video came out, it hit 50,000 views quickly. They didn't write the music for their song, just the lyrics. They took a song that existed. The song is by Lady Gaga. The song is called Born This Way, and it's about accepting people who are trans or different or disabled because they were born that way. Love them for who they are, don't judge them for who they are. And they rewrote the lyrics to be, snakes are born this way. So I just want to show you that video. It's subtitled in Anglais. I'm sorry it's not in Catalan or Spanish, but you'll hear the music and I think you'll get most of it.
It doesn't matter if you're scared of them or not. Just open up your heart because snakes were just born this way.
Our teachers told us in second grade we'd be herpetologists. If you don't know, that means we study snakes from everywhere around the world. There's nothing wrong with having scaly skin. We say snakes are all made perfectly. So watch them slither swoop, 'cause they'll go far, even with no legs and arms. No need to be scared of snakes, they're not all the same. You can't change who they are. Snakes are born this way, they are a part of this world. Don't judge snakes by their looks, you can't change who they are. Snakes are born this way. Did you know that without snakes, mice would eat up all our grains? There would be no food for cows. Without cows, we have no pizza and no ice cream. We need snakes, baby, they are born this way. You can't change who they are. Snakes are born this way.
That was great.
That was actually great. Really high pitch now. That was really good.
Okay. You can find that video online. It's just snakes are born this way. I've been talking about younger kids. I want to give a little bit of a shout out to those of you who are doing secondary education. Let me use some beautiful work, a beautiful work example from secondary education. So this is the city nearest to my house, Springfield, Massachusetts. This is where my wife went to the hospital. This is a very poor city. It used to have a lot of industry, a lot of factories, fabrica. All of those have closed. They've all moved to other countries. A lot of unemployment. The families are very poor. The schools are full of poor students. And the schools don't do so well. For the high schools in this city, there are 8 high schools. And in 7 of those high schools, only 60% of students are graduating. So 6 out of 10 students graduate, 4 out of 10 drop out. They have no diploma. They can't get a job easily. The only jobs they can get are low paying. But there's one exception. The high school that we helped to open, my organization, and this was my job, I worked with this school from the beginning. We founded a public high school that does things differently like your schools do. A school where kids do beautiful work and where they're well known. And this school has a very different success rate. 98% of the students are graduating on time. And every single graduate of this school for the last 18 years has gotten into university. And it's not a tiny school, it has 700 students. Almost all those students come from low-income families, families of color. The same students who go to the schools that are failing, but this school is not failing. And it's a really good reminder to people in the city that It's not the kids' fault. It's our fault if we're failing the kids in this case, because these kids can make it if we give them the right setting, because it's the same kids. Why does this school work? We have a structure called crew. It's a meeting structure where students meet in a small team every morning. It's like an advisory group, a circle. And they stay with those same 12 students for 4 years straight. That same teacher guiding them for 4 years straight, and it's their family at school, and it keeps them on track. Every student in the school is well known by adults, like your schools have. There's deep relationships. Kids are not anonymous. They are well known by the adults. They're well cared for. And they do amazing, beautiful work. So I just want to share one example of a beautiful piece of work by high school kids. These students, in their science work, were paired with city engineers who went into buildings to do energy audits. So they went into buildings to check the windows, the heating systems, the appliances, the insulation, to see the lighting, to see where are things inefficient, where are they losing energy, where are they losing money. The students were trained how to use that testing equipment. And then the students themselves went out to every school in the city, 60 schools, and they did an energy audit on every school building. And then they created a report. This is where each building should be fixed up to save energy and save money and save the environment. They went on television and gave the results of their report to the community on television. They suggested that the city invest $156,000 to fix up city schools, and they guaranteed that if the city did that, that within 5 years, all that money would be made back in the savings of energy expenses. So the mayor is the head of the city. This was 20 years ago, and he's still the mayor. He has a lot of power, this guy. But he's not a bad guy. He was really mad because the students had gone on television, so he couldn't ignore it. He had to do something or he would look bad. So he went back to his staff and he said, "What do I do?" And his staff said, "We think you should invest the money. We worked with these students. We read their report. We critiqued their work. They're right. We believe in their analysis. Their engineering work is good and their financial work is good. You should invest the money." So the mayor went on television and he said, "We're going to invest $156,000 and renovate our city schools to make them more energy efficient because these high school students told us it would work. And within 5 years, we'll have saved money and you as taxpayers will pay less taxes and the environment will be better. It's a win-win for everyone." Then he went to the school and he said, "You students better be right about this." And the students were right, because within 2 years, the city had saved $160,000 in energy expenses. And so they realized, oh my goodness, we are really saving money now. The mayor came back to the school and he said, "We just set aside $250,000 to renovate more buildings in the city, but we need you students to be our energy auditors." And after he left, the students said, "Mr. Berger, isn't this sort of slave labor?" And I said, "Yes, but we're doing good for the world, and you'll bring this report to your college interview process and university. This is a win for everybody." And the students have continued to audit city buildings working as adult professionals, even when they're 15 years old. This is their report, which is one of the many pieces of beautiful work in my collection. Okay, we have a book called Leaders of Their Own Learning. And it's a book about what are the practices that can put students more in charge of their learning. This is the book that's reached the most teachers in America. Millions of students now are affected by this book. And it's got a lot of strategies. In the book, we have 8 different strategies. And we say to schools, you could choose one of these 8, you could choose 2, but if you choose all 8, they all work together. It can make things even work better. And some of the strategies are ones that you know well. Many of these strategies are ones you already use in your school. Strategies like critique and feedback. Strategies like using learning targets so students understand the objectives for every lesson, every project. And then there's a bunch of strategies about having students present their work. Many of you do this already in your schools, where students formally present, this is who I am, this is how my work is going, this is how I'm doing in every subject, here's work I'm proud of, here's what I'm struggling in, and here's what I'm working on personally. Here's how my personal life is going. We heard beautiful presentations from two students at Angeleta Ferrer, Anais and Beatrice, who were able to talk about their personal lives in courageous ways, the hardships they've had personally, as well as talk about the strengths and what they're proud of academically. That can happen in parent conferences. It can happen for the community. There's all these different structures that you're already using, and we're just trying to get more students to use them. So I would like to show you a couple minutes of what that looks like with a high school student. This is a high school student presenting to her community. This is who I am. This is what I'm strong at, but I'm just going to show you a minute of what that can look like.
Hello, everyone. I would like to thank you all for coming to my passage. This whole entire presentation is to prove to everyone that is here that I am ready for 11th grade and I am
In many schools with student-engaged assessment practices, students reflect upon and communicate the scope of their learning and growth at the end of pivotal transition grades through passage presentations. Students present before members of their community. Teachers prepare students for success by providing organizers and rubrics and dedicating school time for preparing. Students share portfolios of work as evidence, and the presentations reflect both academic and personal growth.
Society does kind of like, you could say, trash on Puerto Ricans. My motive is like proving the world wrong. I can be Puerto Rican, I can be a young woman and still go off to college, be a business manager or anything like that and do what I want to do because I worked for it.
Though passage presentations share these universal qualities, passages take on unique characteristics in every school.
Okay, I just want to pause it there. I just wanted to show you a minute of what that looks like to have a high school student presenting to her community. Her parents were in the audience, school officials were in the audience, people from the government were in the audience. She was defending, I'm ready to move on to the last chapter of high school. That young woman has now graduated from university. Couldn't be more proud of her. Some people say, yeah, but what about younger kids? So I want to show you, what does it look like when the youngest kids are sharing their learning?
This year was the first year that we implemented school-wide student-led conferences. And student-led conferences were absolutely exceeded all of our expectations. There was a lot of work, but we knew that if we were going to make this learning public, our students have to be prepared for it, and our students blew everyone away.
I will do it by myself.
She obviously had rehearsed it because she knew what she was talking about, and it was just really blew us away. It really is student-led conference. You come in and they're the ones who are directing the whole thing.
Hi friends, so we've been practicing and getting ready for this day, and now it's here. Are you ready?
Yeah!
I am ready because you get to show what you know to your family or somebody who's coming to watch you. We have two nice friends, Frida and Juliana, right? And they're gonna watch Aiden and Samantha because their mommy already came.
Take your mommy's hand and say, I'm so glad you're here today.
I know the lyric and then goes back.
Yes, because your mama speaks Spanish, I would say that. And then if you're gonna take your portfolio, you choose where to go. You're the boss. You can go on the big table, you can go on where you sit.
Wherever we want.
Yes, but then what kind of a voice are you going to use? A nice, strong voice.
If you finish Epic Mountain, then go to the next thing. If you finish your portfolio, finish the next thing. Do you have to wait for me to tell you?
No.
No, not today, because today it's your turn to be the boss.
She's gonna be super proud of me. I'm excited. Me too.
When I first heard about this, I'm like, okay, this should be interesting. Like, what's he going to say? You're like,
Let me hold it.
3 more moms coming, and a dad.
it's awakening, honestly.
Hi, families. We're so glad you're here. This is our very first time to do a second portfolio day in the year, so thank you for being willing to come and take time out of your busy day. I appreciate it.
Your child is telling you the report on himself. I think that says a lot just on the character. You know, I think that takes a lot.
One thing they're going to do is have you come to a table and listen to their portfolio. Another thing is they're going to take you to our expedition wall called Epic Mountain and kind of tell you some things we've been learning in class. And the last thing is they have some stories in the story bag, we call it, that they need to practice telling you the story. So they know what to do, so they're kind of the boss of this experience. Take your grown-ups where you need to go. You know where to go.
He tells you what his strengths are, where he's struggling, what he plans to do about it, you know, and he breaks it down, and it's not just on each subject, but he also shows me what he's able to do and how he does it and how he learned it and why he got it down.
And I also have my symbols book of the USA.
It's amazing, like, you know, what they've learned so far, and they reflect upon it. It's not like they're waiting for their teacher to cue them in or chime them in. Like, yeah, the teacher's there in the background. It's just you and your child.
George Washington is important because he was the first president of the USA. Abraham Lincoln is important because he was brave and good. This is the flag that I made really hard because it was wavy.
It was wavy? Oh no.
What does integrity mean?
Integrity means doing the right choice.
Taking responsibility for their learning, that's the first thing I think of when I think of EL. And that's really going to prepare them to be adults. You know, I feel like we don't have those life skills sometimes unless we learn them and we're taught them. So starting from an early age, the public speaking.
Our students knew exactly where they were, set goals, but they didn't do just that. They also identified their plan to actually reach those goals.
Y cuando cantaron a los
Where we get to feed the animals in the basement farm. These ones are where we sing to our mommy and daddies.
El que nos tocó la conferencia habló como si estuviera hablando con alguien profesional, así todo bien, sin decirme, oh, yo no quiero hacerlo, como si no fuéramos ni madre e hijo. Y fue pues muy bonito.
No way! I did all the hard work. You guys did it. You were very, very lazy. Just like you, Lily.
All right, families, we only have a few more minutes.
At my job, you know, like if I were to lead a conference on, you know, my work, what I think I've learned, what I plan to do, I think that's a lot to process. The maturity level is out the roof on that one.
Setting the bar high and then also really changing who the audience is, which is all connected to the EL model, has really, really yielded those results and will continue to increase our academic achievement.
Thank you, Baron, so much. This was very special.
So I want to say, in America, you may know that schools and students are tested every year. It's not like in España, it's not like Catalonia. Every single year, students have high-stakes tests. And if students don't do well one year, it's published in the newspaper. Everyone gets in trouble. It's really high pressure. This school was the lowest performing school in the district. Of 23 elementary schools, their test scores were the lowest. We started working with them with student-engaged assessment, leaders of their own learning work, project-based learning. Within 5 years, they're now the highest performing school in the district. They're #1 in their district in exams. And the district is saying, we didn't like any of those ideas at first, but now we're changing our mind. They seem to be really working here. And at our last conference, all the heads of the district came to the conference because they thought something is working in this school that's not working anywhere else. But you can see the student ownership of their learning in every one of those kindergartners, how proud they are of their work. I want to share one more personal story from my teaching, because many people say, but what about kids who have challenges, who have special needs? How do they do high quality work? And so I want to tell you the story of this student. Her name is Jamie. She lived right next to the school where I taught for 28 years. I taught Jamie in 5th grade and in 6th grade. Jamie bought her own horse with her own babysitting money. Do you know babysitting? Is clear? Yeah. She took care of other people's children. Jamie had no father at home, just a mother at home. Very little money, very poor family. But because she babysat all the time, she was able to get enough money to buy a horse and care for her horse. This is her horse, Foxy. Jamie lived right next to the school, so she'd come in, just walk through the back door of the school every day from her house. This year we were studying architecture. We were doing cross-sectional view drawings because I wanted students to learn how to design houses, and their service project that year was they designed and built the playhouse that you saw for the kindergartners. But first, on the second day of school, I took kids cave exploring because I love Outward Bound. I worked with Outward Bound, and I thought, I want to build a sense of teamwork. And so the first day of school, kids came, they were worried about their clothes, they were worried about their sneakers, they worried about their hair, they wanted to look right. First day of school, they were nervous. I said, second day of school, you wear your oldest clothes, your dirtiest clothes, your filthiest clothes. We're going to go underground, you need a flashlight. So day 2, they came in their messy clothes, they were much more relaxed. They all had a flashlight, I gave them all a helmet. We talked about how we're going to take care of each other, and then we went underground. And they were so scared, and I loved it, because they all helped each other. They all held on to each other, they supported each other, they helped each other up and down things underground. We had parents there making sure they were safe underground. They came out filthy and so proud. They all felt like heroes, like Indiana Jones. They laughed, they cried, they hugged each other. The year was off to a great start, great teamwork. But then on the third day of school, they had to do a cross-sectional view of a cave home. So they had to do, what would it look like back in cave days when you lived underground? This is a cave illustration by Jamie of what that cave home would be underground where people lived. But this is kind of an Austin's butterfly story. So before we get to the final, I need to take you back and tell you that Jamie has substantial special needs. Jamie struggled with reading, struggled with writing, struggled with mathematics. She reversed letters. She had dyslexia. In many schools, she would not be in a mainstream classroom. She would be in a special room all the time because of her learning challenges. My school was so small, and we believed that all students should be part of the mainstream, that Jamie was in regular classes. And I knew Jamie from kindergarten on. When she was really little, she did this drawing. I make projects, I like to swim, and I go to sleep. You can see how proud she is about her projects. But when Jamie was in first grade, and here she is as a first grader, having published her first book, she struggled to read and struggled to write. And when I got her as a fifth grader, she was still struggling. Those things just don't go away magically. And she said to me, Mr. Berger, you had my older brother, Jeff. I know the projects you do, I can't do those projects like that. My brain doesn't work right. And she just started crying. I said, Jamie, you'll be fine. She said, you don't know how broken my brain is. It's not good. And so when we went cave exploring, she was great. She was courageous. She was helpful to other kids. Everyone loved her. She was a hero. But then the next day, she had to draw this cave design in cross-section, and she didn't understand cross-section. She didn't understand figure ground and above ground, below ground. The whole assignment just confused her. And so when we put up our work in front of the class on a wall for critique, she started to cry and she left the class. And she said, I'm not pinning my work up for critique, and you can't make me. I'm ashamed of my work. And I said, Jamie, you shouldn't be ashamed of your work. It's your first draft. But you need to get critique, but you don't have to do it in front of the class. Choose somebody that you're safe with, get some critique. So she chose her friend Nicole, and Nicole privately gave her critique and re-explained cross-section. So her second draft actually works in a cross-sectional way. This one she felt, okay, this isn't so bad. I can pin this up. So she pinned it up. She got critique from her classmates. And one of the pieces of critique she got was from the boy she had a crush on, the boy she had romantic interest in. And he said, I like the overlapping rocks up at the top there. So her next draft was all overlapping rocks. And the students said, actually, this draft works better because it has more space. And she said, but this is my latest draft. It has to be my best. And they said, no, it's not your best. The overlapping rocks are good, but you need more space. So she went back to the idea of this draft and the overlapping rocks of this draft, and she created a fourth draft that has lots of space and more rocks. And then she said, Mr. Berger, this is starting to work for me. I'm getting proud of this. But I don't have very good handwriting, and I know you teach calligraphy. Could you teach me calligraphy really fast? And I said, no, not really fast, but we had a big light table in my room, a big table made of glass with lights underneath, and students would trace all the time in my class. All my students who had trouble with handwriting would trace all the time. All my students who had trouble with drawing would trace all the time. And after lots of tracing, everything improved for them. So Jamie would come every morning, knock on the window, because she lived right outside the school. I'd let her in the back door. She'd come in and she'd trace before the students came. After 1 week of tracing, this was her freehand calligraphy. So if you're a calligrapher, you can see it's not consistent yet, it's not great yet, but it's pretty good for 1 week of practice. And so when she did her final draft, you can see even the lettering is really carefully done. And she was really proud of this piece. When we did our exhibition of all the blueprints students had done and all the work they had done, her mother came, her grandmother came. She was so, so proud. So I want to give you an update on Jamie. That's Jamie at age 11 behind her house. Jamie went on to middle school, secondary school. She had a very big education plan, special education plan. She was in a separate room. But she played sports, she had friends, and she graduated from high school, which for her family was a really big thing. No one except her brother had ever graduated from high school from her family. Then she went to college. She went to an agricultural college for horse management. And she got a degree in equine studies, horse studies. And she invited me to her college graduation party. I went to her college graduation party. She came up to me with 2 big cups of cerveza. And in America, you know they're big. She handed me a big cup, cerveza. She said, Mr. Berger, can you believe I have a college degree? I said, of course I can believe it. You are always an amazing person, an amazing student to me. And she said, you know what's funny? I have the same learning disability as I had when I was in kindergarten. I still reverse letters, I still reverse numbers, I still have trouble reading, I still can't line up my numbers easily. I said, so how did you graduate college? She said, I got extra help, I used strategies, I persevered, I believed in myself. You can get through anything. So I want to give you an update because you know I live in a small town, I know where my students are. So this is Jamie at 11. I want to show you Jamie at 45. She doesn't look that different. There's Jamie at 45. That's her brother, Jeff, on the right in the picture. He is a physical education teacher at an elementary school. And her brother, Mike, is on her left, on our left, on her right. Her brother, Mike, had such strong learning disabilities that in 6th grade, when he was 12, he could not read or write at all. He was able to graduate from high school, and he's now a motorcycle mechanic. He has a wife, 2 beautiful children, a great life. Everyone thinks he's a great mechanic. I am so proud of all 3 of them. Couldn't be more proud. But Jamie knew she could do beautiful work throughout her life, even if she had challenges. It just took extra help. It just took a little more time and a little more support. So for the last chapter here, I want to end with talking about this idea of crew. Crew is the word we use in EL for culture and teamwork. It comes from a quote from the founder of Outward Bound: "We are crew, not passengers." Kurt Hahn was an educator in Germany in the 1930s who built a progressive school, a school like our schools. And then Hitler came to power, and the students in his school were critiquing the Nazis, so the Nazis shut down the school, put him in jail. But before he was killed, he was able to escape, and he went to England, and he founded schools in England with the idea that character is just as important as academics, because we can't have more Nazis in the world. We can't have smart people doing evil things. That was the inspiration for my organization, EL Education. We followed the ideas of Kurt Hahn. He founded Outward Bound to have a program for adults and kids that would help us all become better people in the wilderness. And we want to have schools like that. So crew comes from we are crew, not passengers. We don't want our students to be on a cruise ship being served homework and work by you as teachers and leaders. We want them to be on a schooner with sails, running, pulling in the sails, pulling in the anchors, doing the work, charting the course with us. We want them to be crew members, not passengers on a cruise ship. We don't want them passive in our school. So it fits our character framework of contributing to a better world. We are all in this to make the world better. We have a book called We Are Crew. And crew changes school from an individual sport to a team sport. In an individual sport, your job is for you to win. In a team sport, it's your whole team. And so we say in our schools, nobody wins if we all win. High school students in our schools feel like, I don't succeed unless all of my classmates get into university. That's the way they view high school. Crew means 2 things for us. It means a culture of working together, of teamwork, and it means a culture of teamwork among staff as much as students. Because if the staff has a sense of crew, of teamwork and compassion, the students see that, they feel that, they understand that. And it means daily meetings with students, where the students get together every day in a small group, and they work together, and they check in on each other socially and emotionally and academically. So it all starts with staff crew. Staffs get together once a week, circle up, talk about how they're all doing emotionally, personally, and academically with their students. The students get together every day, and it's their family at school. They call them their crew brothers and their crew sisters. They fight just like kids at home fight. They get mad at each other just like people at home, but they love each other just like people at home. The reason our high schools get every student into university is that their crew forces them to keep working. Their crew holds them accountable and supports them every day. Every day, students speak in crew. You cannot come to a crew meeting and not speak. Every student has a voice in crew. It's where they get their academic work done too. If they're struggling in any subject, other students will help them in crew. And it's where they talk about tough issues: racism, sexism, sexuality, drugs, suicide, anxiety. They have honest conversations in Crew every day. And if you make mistakes in your life, which we all do, Crew is where you apologize for those mistakes that you make. So I want to show you, to end, a video of what Crew is like. And I don't care if anyone here ever uses the word Crew. I don't think you need to meet every day like they do in these schools. But I hope that the vision of Crew, of we're in this together, the spirit of Crew, is something where you think that is what we do at our school, and we really need to lean into it. We really need to make that strong, because it's what starts and leads everything. If we are all together in this, everybody belongs.
I think the power of Crew is that it's about students and teachers getting to know each other deeply. We all bring outside lives and experiences to the work we do on a daily basis here, and that it's important that we recognize our humanity.
By working in our community and then working our way out, we bring more positive change.
We want our local community, our national community, and our global community to be ever improving. We need everybody to be not just on board, but helping drive the ship forward.
We're crew, not passengers.
The whole relationship and philosophy around We Are Crew is truly embedded.
And we're going to make a circle.
If you don't get at the heart of a child, they're not going to learn. How do we create an environment where kids feel like they belong and they're part of a school community and not just a student in a school? You have to build relationship.
Crew is a vehicle that helps you build relationships, whether it's faculty crew or student crew.
Crew is a structure that allows us to create a sense of belonging, and it meets at least 30 minutes a day.
That level of confidence that comes from feeling like you are belonging into a space really sets the stage for growth to happen.
I want to educate children sometime in the near future about the LGBTQ plus community.
Every student has a crew leader, and that crew leader is assigned to about from 12 to say 17 students.
Your crew advisor really gets to know your life outside of school, your life in school, your academic progress.
Just getting to build camaraderies with people, it helps you build. It helps build your character as a person.
So it's a way to uplift you in the school.
As principal, I've become a better person, a better leader, and a better advocate for kids with my engagement and my understanding of Crew.
They're in it together. They're in the same ship, right?
And having your crew there is really, really good. Especially as a first generation student, it's hard to seek help for the applications. And if we didn't have Crew, I would be lost. I wouldn't have time. I feel like all the colleges I applied to wouldn't have gotten applied to.
They hold each other accountable. They push each other to their highest goals, and they challenge each other emotionally.
I really do love you guys. I love hard, and this is how I'm loving right now.
We unite with each other. We're basically like a family. We're responsible for each other, make sure everyone's on track.
So maybe right here, it looks like you didn't erase your lines. So we got erasers so we can make it perfect, and we got to ask our crewmates if they could help us.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And that's so much so much bigger than just oh, you're my friend and I'm just gonna be nice to you. No, I'm holding you accountable to do this hard, rigorous work, but I'm gonna support you along the way. And seeing kids do that is that's it. That's what it's about, right? That's Crew.
Because if they helped me, that would be showing compassion.
When students feel like their identities are welcomed, one, and celebrated, two, it certainly impacts their academic success positively and significantly.
Crew has helped me academically by providing me with skills of how I can advocate for myself verbally. Maybe I need to reach out to someone that's stronger than me in math.
I pointed out to my crew that if anyone needed help in math, I would help them because math is my favorite and my best subject. So I'm there to help my crewmates if they need it.
Many students feel defeated when they have to ask for help. And I think when students have the opportunity to have themselves celebrated and recognized, that fear tends to dwindle.
We're also very willing to bring up difficult conversations, have conversations within our community, and be able to trust one another.
Maybe because of my privilege, some of the things that we've talked about in Courageous Conversation are related to race, mental illness, marginalized groups such as the LGBTQ community. We've talked about white privilege.
It's always the Black people reaching out to the white people.
I think it's best to be honestly pushed to where you're not in your comfort zone, you're in a little bit of a stretch zone.
I think brave and honest communication is a prerequisite for equity. I think that you cannot have one without the other.
What has to be in the conversations is trust and love, and a lot of it too. I want to be a pediatric oncologist because I had an incident with my cousin and she's no longer here with us. We need to be able to share our stories, and in Crew, since we get to do that, we get to have other people's support from us.
Those relationships that happen there span out into the entire community.
Crew gives our students the voice to take a stand for something that they believe in.
What do we want? When do we want it?
When one is given the position to proclaim their inward thoughts without fear of reprisal, such people can transform the world.
We save our watershed and we help animals and we serve and
I'll still be fighting for you.
Everyone on the front lines of this pandemic.
Their presence and their effort and their work and learning is contributing to moving this ship forward. And by being crew and not passengers, they are advocating and creating meaningful change in the world around them.
In Crew, you teach us to become better people in general. And that's why we basically go to school, to learn things, but also to learn how we could help people and how we could become our best selves to help people around us.
Thank you. Gracias. I want to end on that, just this vision that we're in this together. We've got to work together. I want to honor you for your work. As I said before, the work you do is the most important work I know in the world. It's really an honor. I want to thank you for being here this morning, giving us hours of time together.